never say my finances a mess. So much power comes from how we speak about things. So much power. And what we don't always recognize is that our ears are the first to hear the words that come from our mouth. But we can use this to our advantage. And so if we know in our brain and our body that our money is just not where we want it to be, that things are not going the way we thought they would, that we want it to be different or better or easier or smoother, then start talking like that. I'm getting better with money every day. I'm figuring it out. I'm learning, I'm reading, I'm trying new things. It's going to be better soon.
Today's guest is Dr. Darla Bishop. She is an author of How to Afford Everything and the founder of Financis LLC, a consulting company based in Michigan. Darla wears many hats, including Mediaid, managed care execs, professor, speaker, and author. The number of hats is due to the part of her roles as spouse to an active duty service member. Welcome, Darla.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be with you this morning. Well, morning for me. I think it's afternoon for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited to learn a few things for myself. Hey. So, after I've read that, what is one of the most courageous things that you have done?
Oh, there's so many. And I'm so glad you sent me this question ahead because I've been thinking about it for a few days. And you know what it comes down to? I decided I wanted something different and then I went after it.
Wow.
And there have been many times in my life where that first decision changed everything. One particular moment that stuck out to me is it was shortly after my mother had gone to prison and we were living with her sister. I was a teenager, my siblings were a bit younger, and I remember thinking, this will not change my life in the way that people expect it will. I will still go to college. I will still be a doctor. At that time, I thought I'd be a medical doctor, but it all worked out. And I'm still going to have a beautiful life. And that decision in that moment, one of the darkest moments of my life, changed everything.
So, wow, how courageous is that? I love the fact that you're not going to allow that to define your circumstances, your situation. I absolutely love that. There's definitely strength in that.
And I don't know if I was allowed to or if I just knew that that could not be the end of my story.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me, what took you on your journey of being the founder of Financis? I love the name.
Oh, thank you. Well, part of it is one of the most important roles I've had for a very long time is sister. Usually big sister, sometimes little sister. And when I was putting all of the work together to write my book, and I was like, well, I need a social media handle. What will work? So we looked at me and one of my very good friends. We said, well, what about Money Mama? You know, because he jokingly calls me his money mom. I'm like, well, I'm not old enough to be everybody's mom. And I was like, but I am like the right age to be almost anybody's sister, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do with sister? And I was like, well, what about financial sister? And he was like, that's too long. And I was like, you're right. That is too long. I was like, I got it. Finance sis. Sounds like finances, but I'm the sister. And what took me on the journey is along the way, you know, I told you about that moment sitting on my aunt's bed when I decided this wasn't going to change my plans for my life of going away to an amazing college and finding at that time the man of my dreams and getting married and having a fantastic career and moving to a big city and living in a great too small apartment. When I went away to that college, I met so many classmates whose parents were much better off financially. And so they had a completely different relationship with money and how they spent money and how they talked about money. And even the concept of being a broke college student meant something completely different to them than it did to me, someone who was barely at that university, not because I wasn't smart enough, because frankly, I was probably smarter than many of my classmates because I had to figure out how to get there despite my life circumstances. And they just had to get there. But because of the money differences, right? And I was like, okay, if I can figure out the money, ooh, I will be dangerous. I will be dangerous in this world because I figured out how to get here with these classmates who have Range Rovers and whose parents are writing checks for tuition. And I had a lovely roommate my first year whose parents were so sweet and generous to me. I remember when we were moving in, they said, well, Darla, we noticed you didn't bring much with you. And I said, oh, no, it's because I live close by. I didn't need a lot. My family's just not even 1 hour away. And they said, no, come to the store with us. Come to the market. We'll buy you a few things. Don't be shy. We won't be back for a while to check on you. We don't want to worry for you. And, like that type of generosity. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be generous. I want to have the money to take care of some random girl who's living with my child. Right. And so I was like, okay, you know what? I know what to do. I might not know about money yet, but I know how to study. I am super good at learning. I'm an A student, quite literally. So I started reading books about money. And after 30, I felt really good about understanding what money is and wasn't and how to use it. Around 50, people started asking me questions because they're like, we noticed you have money and we'd like to have some too. Could you help me with my budget? Or could you help me? I just got a new job. What do I need to know about the money that this new job is bringing into my life? Or later, once I got to around book 75, I was like, I could have written this book. And I just kind of kept saying that. And my husband, the dear heart he is, one day said, well, you finally finished school. And that was a journey in itself. Maybe you have space now to finish your book that you started. Because I'd started my personal finance book a few times before. He said, what would it take? Could you finish it? And I said, well, I think I need an editor. And so he said, well, go get an editor. I said, I think I need a marketing budget. He said, well, let's make a marketing budget. And so here we are, almost a year after publishing the book. And it has been a joyride. A joyride.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you all about your book in a little while. I want to know more. But I've got so many questions. But the first one I think I'd like to ask you is, how can anyone master their budget? We're talking about budgets. Everyone has a budget, whether they realize it or not, because some people don't realize it. So can you slightly unpack that, or can you go into depth about that?
Yes. So the very first thing to do is something you said was so powerful. Some people don't think they have a budget, but you do. A budget is simply an accounting of where the money has come from and where it has gone to. And so if you've never gone through the exercise of sitting down to write it or to take the report, especially now in this day and age, it's so easy to get a report from your app or from your online bank account or from your credit card company. If you've never sat down to stop and take an account, it's easy to do. And that's really the first step is, where is the money coming from and where is it going to? And when someone is feeling like their money should be doing different things for them, or that they should have more, or it could be different, that the first thing I tell them to do is to look at the last 3 months. What happened in the last 3 months? Where did your money go? What sources did you get money from? Was there anything out of the ordinary that happened? Was there something unexpected? Did you think something was going to go one way, but it went a different way? And I encourage them to do this in a way that is not at all judgmental. That really, this isn't about judging yourself or saying, I should have. No, we don't should on ourselves. That doesn't even sound friendly or hygienic, right?
Right
But
there
to get
with you.
really, really curious, right? To kind of put on your investigative hat, that you're just being curious. What will I learn by looking at the last 3 months of how the money flowed in and out of my wallet? And you might learn a few things. You might learn, oh, that's right, I'm in a group of friends that loves to go to dinner when it's someone's birthday. So maybe I should pay attention to when everyone's birthday is so I have money for that. Or you might recognize that, oh, someone in my life is having a baby soon, and I know that I'm going to want to spoil that little baby. I'm going to want to give them gifts and spend time and spoil the parents, and so make a plan for that. You might figure out that the job you're working that you like some, but not all that much, isn't bringing enough money in for you to live an easy existence, to bring ease into your life. And so by learning those things, now that you know, you can do something about it.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. Nobody really, I mean, not, I suppose more people do this day and age take stock of their actual incomings and outgoings. And it is as simple as that. And if you do know you've got something big coming up, then this is where set aside some money. That's my understanding, and it's always worked for me. But there's so much more to all of this. So, my next question is, so many people do struggle with debit, and that could be anything. How can one, that could be including student loans. What's the best way to tackle that and frankly get out of it?
So the first thing is to figure out your style of spending,
Mm,
right? And what will help keep you motivated. And so there are two ways. There's really only two ways to fix your budget, and there's only two ways to get out of debt, right?
mm,
So let's talk about the debt first. And so the two ways are you either take everything you owe and you write it down on a slip of paper or put it in a computer program and you organize it in order from interest rate highest to lowest. And that is typically called the avalanche method, where you're working to pay the highest cost debt first,
mhm,
and then you slowly work your way down to the lowest cost debt so that you can do this in the most efficient way. But
mm,
humans are not efficient. We are not. We are not built to be efficient. We are not robots. Despite how many times the computer asks you if you're a robot, you have not yet turned into a robot. So no, you are not a robot. So I 100% of the time, 100% of the time without fail,
mm,
recommend the other way, which is called the snowball method. And this is where you take all of the things you owe and you still write them down or you put them in that spreadsheet or computer program, but you put them in order of amount from smallest to largest.
mhm,
Don't worry anything about the interest rate. It's important. We need to know what it is, but we're
mm,
focused on smallest to largest because what that does is say, and I want you to put everything on it. If you owe your mom or your cousin $20, I want you to write that down.
yeah.
If you borrowed $100 from someone, I want you to write that down because what happens is first you'll get to knock off that $20 and then you'll get to knock off the 100. And then
Mhm,
maybe the next one is bigger. Maybe it's a few thousand. But because you've gotten a few wins very quickly, you've started the momentum. And so you
mm,
actually end up going a little bit faster because you say, wow, if I was able to do that in 3 months, what could I do in 6?
yeah.
What could I do in 1 year? You see that hope of being free from owing these people in these places. And you get creative about ways to find a little more room in the budget to take care of it. Because you also notice that if I can get rid of owing these people, that all of this money that I'm sending away right now comes right back to me, then we can have fun with it today instead of sending it away. And the other piece that I think isn't always stated out loud, which actually frustrated me as I was
Mhm,
reading other books, is there are things that happen in our world that contribute to the reasons we have debt, why we owe people money. And one of the main things that we sometimes forget to look at is we may be working a job that just does not pay enough for what our
mm,
needs are today. Maybe when we were first leaving school or when we were first starting our career, that job was fantastic. We were so happy with it. The pay was great, the coworkers were great, the location was great. But as life goes on, many parts of our lives change as they should, right? That's what life is all about. And so maybe your needs have changed. And so it might be time to either figure out if you can get an increase, which isn't always possible where you are.
mm,
And if not, then you need to find the next place that can give you enough income so that the outgoings are smaller than the income.
mm. I love that. So you'd slightly touched on this, not enough though, but tell me, if possible, how does the mindset all come into this? Because I
Mm.
know some people just love spending, 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 and beyond their own budget.
And spending can be fun. Look,
Mm,
as someone who has had periods of time in my life where we just didn't have anything, just
mm,
didn't have anything, and getting to a place where I had something, there is this joy, there is this happiness, there is this, oh, finally, this relief almost of being able to go get things, even if they're a little bit further than what your budget says you should be doing, than what your incomings say you should be doing, right? There is something that happens in your body when you've been without for any amount of time. So where one, you're just sick of being without. So you're like, no, you know what? Today I'm going to have that thing. Or this month we are going to do this. And if that's where you are, recognize what are the things that you really are craving that you feel like you haven't had and prioritize them. Prioritize them. Simply put them at the top of the list right after your needs are met, right? Make sure that you have a place to live. Hopefully that's safe and cozy and warm. Make sure you have some foods to eat, preferably if you could add some healthy options in there. That's good for your body because then you can live longer to enjoy all the great things that life has to offer. And then right after those needs are met, put in some of the things that bring you joy and happiness. But part of it is you have to sit with yourself and figure out, well, what is it that I actually want? I was talking with another podcast host, and he jokingly said, okay, so how do I convince my wife to let me buy a boat? And I said, oh, you're going to love my answer. I said, tell me a little bit more about why you want the boat. Do you want the boat because that's how you feel your best on the water, fishing, relaxed? Do you want the boat because that's when you know all of your family members actually come together? They will make the trip to be on the boat together. Is it that you want the boat because you just really you have that need for speed? What is the reason behind the boat? The boat is one physical thing, but there's something about it that you want. And he was like, yeah, I think it's the family time. My parents are getting older. My siblings, we don't live in the same towns anymore. All the kids are starting to be all grown up and are starting their own families. And I think if we had a boat, people would come up and we'd have family time. And I said, okay, well, maybe you don't need the boat for that. Maybe what you're really after is family time. So you take the trip to see each of your siblings this year.
Yeah.
Or you plan a family party and tell everyone that, hey, I'm your brother and I'm your brother card and you come to this party or else I'm going to be mad with you. And then see if you still want the boat. And if you still want the boat and you have the dollars for it, go get it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And it is the psychological needs behind it. And how often do we actually think we want something? And, you just going through those few questions, it's absolutely fantastic because you can actually reason. Do you really need it? No, you don't. It's something else. How many times do we want something and actually there's an underlying need under it? And it can be as simple as spending time with your family. It
Yeah,
doesn't need to cost a lot to get together with your family. And I think
it
there is
doesn't.
this whole, if I do a big gesture, everybody will come and, at least we'll get to see each other. Yeah, I absolutely love that answer. Brilliant. Thank you.
I hope someone uses the idea. And if the boat really is the answer, remember that you don't have to buy the boat. You can rent boats pretty easily. And
Yeah.
so maybe rent the boat. That comes at a much lower cost. I have a cousin who's been doing well financially for the last few years after several years of not doing well. And he told me, he said, Darla, I want to buy a car. I want to buy a big truck, one of those big, loud trucks. But he lives in the city. He doesn't need a big truck that you would need as a farmer. And I said, well, why do you want a big truck? He said, because, I work so hard and I deserve it. I've worked hard. This is how I'll show myself that all my work has paid off. I said, okay. But when it sits in the parking lot of your job for 50 hours a week, because I know you work at least 50 hours a week, and then on the weekends when you don't let the kids get in it because it's your new truck and you're driving the car that you drive right now to take them to their activities and their sports, are you going to be feeling good about paying that really high insurance and possibly that high car payment? I said, if you want to go get a truck, I want you to go rent the biggest, loudest truck you can go find. Go to the rural rental car company and get the biggest farm truck you can find. I want you to drive it as far as you want take a 3-day weekend. And don't even clean the car at the end. Get it muddy, leave your wrappers, leave your water bottles, park it, pay them their money and walk away. I said, that'll probably scratch the itch long enough so that you can keep that money in your bank account. Keep the money in your bank account. You don't need the big truck.
I love that. Absolutely love it. And it is. Sometimes it's the thrill of things. Oh,
Yeah,
I
so get
love
the thrill without the long-term payment. You can
Yeah.
rent almost anything. You can rent big houses, you can
Yeah.
rent fancy cars,
Mm.
you can go to the nicest restaurants and have a fantastic several-hour experience
Mm.
and pay for it one time instead of every month over and over
Mhm.
again.
Mm. Yeah, it's fantastic. Right, we're going to talk about investment now. If someone wanted to invest, how would they do that? And is that the best way to increase your income?
So investment is one of a few things that you're supposed to do
Mm.
to keep your money picture painted and full and colorful, right? So, I have young children. They are 4 and 6. And so we're teaching them about how to use money in really simple terms. But surprisingly, this is helpful for grown-ups too. And so whenever they get money that they've earned, usually by doing something special for a grandparent, right? Oh, you helped me sweep. So they'll give a few dollars
Yeah.
there. Or my son, when he goes to get his haircut, the barber is so nice. And he'll say, oh, well, you helped me sweep the floor. And so he'll sweep the floor and he'll give him a few dollars. And so we say, okay, whenever you get money for whatever reason you've earned it, remember we have three things we have to do with it. We can spend some of it. We have to decide how we're going to spend it, but we also have to save some of it. And we might be saving because we don't know why we need it, but we'll need it later. Or we might
Mhm.
be saving because there's something really big or special you want and you don't have enough money just yet. So we're adding up all of our monies until we have a big enough pile to get that special thing you want. And we also have to give some away because when you have something, it's really important to share. Sharing is one of the most wonderful things you can do because if you can get that special thing and you can share it with your best friend or with one of your classmates who couldn't ever get that special thing, you'll be
Mhm.
happy over and over again. And it's the same for adults, right? So if we can figure out how to use our money in all of those ways, and the saving part is about stacking it up in case you need to use it later or because you know you'll need to use it later. Investing is about putting it in a place where you can't touch it, but it gets to work while you are just living your life. So that as you put a bit in, it grows. And as you put a bit more in, it grows so that it compounds your effort. That's why it's called compound interest,
Mm.
right? So that way you put in $1, and if you let it play in the market or in real estate or a business, that dollar becomes maybe two, and then maybe over time it becomes five. And if you get really lucky or you've had a lot of time on your side, that one might eventually come become 100. And so it's about letting the money do some work because you've already worked. So that, and then that way you have some money put away, not only that you've been saving for a specific purpose or that you just might need at some point later in the future, but then you also have some money that's been working in the background so that when you're ready to work less or to work not at all, you have some money to take care of your warm, cozy, safe home environment so that you can eat, so that you can go and do the things you need to do every day and every week without having to work for an income. So, yes, it is an important aspect. But I will tell you that for me, investing is boring and I love it that way. I find the something that's already in the US, they're called index funds. I'm sorry that I don't, I know we have an international audience, so please
Mhm.
forgive me for not
Mm.
knowing the terms for other markets, but it's an index fund. It's essentially a list of companies, big and small, different sectors. And so it's this risk is spread out, it's diverse. You buy some and you just let the companies do their work and their value grows over time. And I just put the money in, and every few months I check it. Oh, it's grown. Great. It's grown because I've been continuing to put something in and because the market is performing well. Fantastic. But it's boring. I don't get excited about specific companies. I don't get excited about the next big thing. Nope. I'm just letting the market do its thing. And my job is to put the money there so it can do the work so that in 30 years when I need it, it's a really big pot of money and we can do whatever we want. But I do a lot of whatever I want now too. And we'll talk about that, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I love the fact that you don't worry so much about it because I think some people can get really hooked on their investments. Yeah.
The idea is if you have time, which hopefully the people who are listening, that, have you ever heard this adage? The best time to invest was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. The most
Yeah.
important thing with investing in anything is to do a little bit of research to make sure it's, at least as far as you can tell, as safe or lower risk, right? That it has a good chance of actually growing over time. and to give yourself the time. Don't put money into something where you need it to grow in 1 year. That's just unrealistic. If
Yeah.
you had 100 pounds to lose, you wouldn't only give yourself 6 months. And if you didn't do it, you consider yourself a complete failure. No, it's just not a realistic time frame. So when it comes to investing, put it in something and where you don't need to touch it for 5, 10, 15 years and just let it do its thing. Go live your life and let that money work in the account like it's supposed to while you're living your life.
If someone's listening right now is thinking, my finances are a mess, where do I start? What would you say to them?
Thank you so much for asking this. The first thing is never say that again. Never say my finances a mess. So much power comes from how we speak about things.
Mm,
So much power. And what we don't always recognize is that our ears are the first to hear the words that come from our mouth. But we
I
can
love
use
that.
this to our advantage. And so if we know in our brain and our body that our money is just not where we want it to be, that things are not going the way we thought they would, that we want it to be different or better or easier or smoother, then start talking like that. I'm getting better with money every day. I'm figuring it out. I'm learning, I'm reading, I'm trying new things. It's going to be better soon. Because even if your brain doesn't believe it, as you start to talk and speak those things, and it comes into your brain from the outside, your brain will just a little bit open up to those ideas. And as you do it over and over again, the people around you will take notice and they'll start repeating it, even if they do it with a bit of an eye roll. When I was in college, one of the things I used to say all the time to my friends, they say, "Oh, are you coming to the party?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, I have to work." And they're like, "Oh, right. You'd rather be tired than broke." Because I used to tell them all the time. They'd be like, "Why do you work so much?" And I said, "Well, I'd rather be tired than broke.
Yeah.
If I work, I earn money and I'm not broke. And right now, in this stage of my life, that is the most important thing. I'd rather be tired than broke." And so after a while, if I decline an invitation or say, "Oh, yes, I'll come, but I'll have to come later. I have to work," they'd be like, "Oh, right, right, right. You'd rather be tired than broke." But for me, that actually was, they maybe were annoyed or sharing, a bit of, I don't know, maybe even making fun of me a bit. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was actually powerful. I'm like, wow, that's something that I say, but you're saying it to me. That means I've said it so much that it's so much of what I believe and how I'm
Yeah.
behaving and how I'm doing it that I don't even have to say it anymore. You're telling me, you're affirming for me that this is important. So you're right. I'd rather be tired than broke. So I'll be at work. So save some drinks for me. I'll be there after 11.
Oh, I love that. Absolutely love that. That's fantastic. What is the one thing that changed your finances forever?
It's when I realized, because I was recovering from so much trauma around money,
Mm-hmm.
that I really felt like money took so many things from me, that,
Mm,
or really the lack of money, that money is perhaps the reason why my mom went to prison in the first place, because we didn't have the money for a really good lawyer, or that we were living in a neighborhood that caused the situation that led to her arrest to happen.
uh-huh.
And if we had a better financial situation, we wouldn't have even been in that neighborhood, kind of thing. I realized that in order for my body, because I felt those things in my body, to trust that all the work we were doing, all those jobs, all that reading, all that listening to podcasts and radio shows was going to be worth it, I couldn't just live in the future. I couldn't just say, I'm working this hard for future me, for 6 months from now, for 1 year from now. That I had to take care of myself today, that I had to fit in some joy, some happiness, some pleasure in today. And that I also needed to address my past, that I had to do all three at the same time. I had to work on the present of my money, the past of my money, and the future of my money, that I couldn't ignore either any of them. Because if I ignored the present, if I denied all pleasure, all happiness in the name of future me, we weren't going to make it to future me.
Yes.
We weren't. We were going to get tired. We were going to give up. We were going to throw it all away if we didn't fit in some happiness, some joy. Simple things, simple things like actually saying yes to a dinner invitation, or
Mm,
cooking a really great meal with maybe slightly more expensive ingredients because I just like them better, right? Um that and that if I ignored my past, if I didn't take care of the things like the money I owed to people or banks or loans, that present me wasn't going to be happy. And we might not make it to future. So I had to think about all three. But thinking about all three was actually, it, it, I think some people listening might say, "Oh, that sounds heavy. That sounds like a lot. That sounds like too much. I got to think about past, present, and future." Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually great because the past, you'll realize you've had a lot of lessons that maybe you didn't know at the time were lessons you needed about how to interact with the world and how to use money. And so and how using the money in certain ways leads to great things or not so great things. And the present is the gift, right? We don't know what the future looks like. We can do our best to put things in place so that the future looks the way that we've imagined it, but we don't have a lot of control. But in the present, we can choose to be happy and to bring the things into our life that bring that joy and that ease. And so don't wait for it. Find those little ways to incorporate it now.
Love that. Absolutely. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. So tell me more about how you work and what your work involves.
So the way that I wrote this book is I think I told you earlier in this conversation that once I started kind of getting good with money, my friends and my siblings kind of noticed, well, you always seem to have money. What is that about? And so I said, well, I can show you, but I got to get in your business. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. I'm going to make you show me your bank statements. We're going to talk about how you're using money, how you're not using money, how you're earning money, where the money's going, where it's not going. So I got to get in your business. So if you don't want me in your business, then I'll recommend a few books to you that I think were really helpful to me. But if you're okay with me getting your business, I can show you how, but I gotta get in your business, because me giving you a budget worksheet without understanding what your relationship with and to money is not going to get us far. And I had a few friends who said, you know what? Sounds good, because you seem to have money and that looks fun. Money is fun. I'd like some more of that. And so I started coaching, and I realized after a few friends that I was kind of asking the same set of questions, that I was having them fill out the same forms so that I could get a picture of where they were in their money and where they wanted to go and how much time they felt like they had to get there. And if they needed to bring someone along with them, whether it be a partner or a parent or a sibling, because we are as humans live in communities, and so sometimes we got to bring the community with us to make sure it actually works.
Yes.
And then I kind of created a system, like, okay, well, these are the questions everybody answers, these are the forms everyone fills out. And then after several years of that, and that my husband being like, look, you should just write your book, because I think he was just tired of me saying I should write my book so that I could have something else to talk about. And I took all of those emails and conversations in that system and added additional content and background and how to, and that's what became the book. So I started as this self-study, who then started coaching family and friends, and then said, oh, I don't have capacity to coach the way that I like to coach, where I really get deep with people. And so maybe if I put the system in the book, more people can do the steps themselves to at least get a start. And then once they have that baseline place where things are at least running a little more smoothly, then they can come to me with the more difficult questions or issues. But at least if I can hand them the book, I can say, try this first. And that would buy me time to either get more capacity for clients or put up a digital course or something so that they could be served, but without me having to be there, because raising small kids takes a lot of time.
Definitely.
Yeah, I'm busy right now.
Bless. So tell me about your book, How to Afford Everything. I mean, I just love the title. That in itself speaks volumes to me. So
Yeah,
tell me
it took me, the title was one of the last things me and the editor came up with, because I was kind of waiting, before I started writing the book, because I'm a reader. When you're a reader, I think it makes it a bit easier to be a writer, because you've seen things talked about in so many different ways. You kind of know the way that you want to talk about it in the form of a book. And I remember reading or hearing something from some other author that, the book told me its title. somewhere in the book, the title will come to you. So the editor was asking me, okay, so what are we going to name this book? And I said, I don't know yet. I'm waiting for the book to tell me. I'm waiting for the book to tell me as we're getting through the chapter and the next chapter. I'm waiting for the book to tell me. And she said, okay, but we need to get on the cover design. So the book hasn't told you yet. So I think you got to come up with it. I said, okay, what am I promising with this book? What am I telling people I'm going to teach them? What might make someone who knows they want or need help with their money, but has been afraid to pick up a book about it for whatever reason, what might make them pick it up? I said, I'm going to make a bold promise.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a bold statement. You know what I'm going to teach you? I'm going to teach you how to afford everything. And it was like, is there a subtitle? Everything you want, everything you can afford. I'm like, no, just everything, because each person has a different everything. Right now, depending on where you are, you might just be like, look, I just want to afford all the bills. That's all I want. I just want to be able to pay the bills on time every month. That's all. That's all I want. For some people, they're like, okay, I've got that down, but my kids are getting older and I want to be able to send them to university. And some people are like, oh, no. We've got that stuff down. But you know what I really want to afford? I want to afford a boat. How can I do that? And so I meant it to be a bit up for interpretation in hopes that someone who's been previously hesitant to pick up a book about money, or who's been hurt by a book about money. I've been hurt by a book about money before. Might try again.
Definitely. I love it. Absolutely love it. Yes. So you are the host of the podcast Financial Freedom as well. Tell me more about that.
Yes, I did a very short podcast as part of one of the things that I worried about putting the book out is I talk about money very much in this way. The way that I'm talking about you, this is how the book reads. And I was worried that someone who liked to read about money might pick up my book and say, who is this person who claims to be a doctor talking so unseriously and casually about this very important topic? I had a lot of fear around that. And so I said, I know what to do. I need to just get my voice out, because once people talk to me, once they hear me for 2 minutes, they go, oh, that's just how she talks. Oh, that's just how she teaches. And so I had this bright idea that I would record a short 5-episode miniseries that went through the key topics of the book, so that I, in my own words, could describe how I teach about money, tell some of my favorite stories, get people to hear a sample of it so they could know if I was the right teacher for them. Because I didn't want people to pick up my book and be like, this was trash. Because maybe it was trash for them, but like, listen to me first so that you don't waste your money or my time and then end up writing a bad review just because I'm not the right teacher for you. And so, yes, that's the story behind the podcast. I have not recorded more podcast episodes yet, partially because I just love this. I love being able to visit people like you and to talk to your audience and to share the stories and to learn about other podcast hosts. And, again, going back to raising small kids, I don't think I have the time to be a producer, right? Like it's much easier for me to show up and look cute and talk with you and then say, okay, bye, I'm having a great day. But after this, you're going to go edit and promote and adjust. And nope, this is much more fun.
I love it. Absolutely love it. So what is one of the most important lessons you have learned over your life so far?
Everything is figure outable.
Oh.
Everything is figure outable. And you don't have to know the answer, but if you get good at asking questions, you can get closer every moment. Everything is figure outable. There is some solution somewhere. And even if the first few solutions that come to you is a menu of bad solutions, one of them is probably less bad. So start there and then ask more questions. And everything is figure outable. Everything.
Absolutely love it. You have given us so many tools, daily steps to anyone that wants to start improving their finances. What is your key takeaway?
To start as small as you need to. One step. Decide on one thing you'll do today, and then decide on one thing you'll do this week. And it can be a tiny thing of, okay, I'll print my bank statement so I can look at them. It could be, I will make a list of all of the credit cards I have just so that I know which ones are active and which ones are not. It could be I'll open a savings account because I realize I don't have a place to kind of put money away. It's all in the same place. Just decide one thing you'll do today, tiny, tiny, tiny thing, and one thing you'll do this week. Again, also a very small thing. And then do it over and over again. Okay, what's one thing I can do this week?
I love that. Yeah, brilliant. So where can the listeners find you online, your book, your podcast? What's your website, Dr. Darla?
The easiest way to find all of the things is to find my website, which is darlabishop.com. And that'll lead you to the social media accounts under my_finances. That'll lead you to howtoaffordeverything.com. That has tons of freebies because as a teacher and as a learner, I know that not every student and every teacher is for one another. And so I try to put a lot of things out there so people can kind of try me out, right? They can hear the way I talk. They can see the way that I write. There's a sample chapter so they can kind of test if I'm the right teacher for them, because I'm going to make you do work. There's a lot of homework. The book is chock full of worksheets. Every chapter has work you have to do built right in there. And so I don't want you to be pissed off that this teacher that you don't even like is making you do this hard work, right? No. I want you to be like, okay, I like her enough to do the work. And then you do the work and you feel a little bad, but then you see it getting better.
Excellent. Absolutely excellent. I love your approach so much. And thank you for sharing your courageous journey and deep, insightful wisdom and knowledge with us today. And by doing so, I know you have helped so many others, Dr. Darla Bishop.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a fantastic conversation.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. I've learned so much as well. So thank you personally.
So you'll be rich in no time.
Absolutely. So we are all about Create the Courage to Be Fearless podcast. What is your definition of courage?
Knowing that you're scared and doing it scared.